Just how popular was the Xbox and Bethesda showcase at E3 2021? Well, there have been some numbers published comparing all the conferences based on social mentions. Now, the other day, Phil Spencer tweeted out thanking everybody for viewing the E3 event and saying that it was the most viewed E3 ever, and saying that he hasn't felt this much excitement since the 360 era. And I mean, I would definitely agree with that. There wasn't very much excitement during the Xbox One era, but during the 360, it was very, very high. And now with the Xbox Series X and S, I'm feeling again like we're getting back to when Xbox was great with the 360. Now, the numbers in terms of viewership, Xbox finished second based on the highest peak in viewership, where Nintendo had the most by almost a million more, 3.1 million, followed by Xbox at 2.3 million, then Ubisoft at 1.4, Square at 1.3, and Devolver at 1.1 million. But that isn't the whole story, as we can see here that there are some new numbers that have been published, and these come from the social media channels and the amount of mentions that these conferences got. So this is an article from WCCF Tech, and they reached out to Synthesio, the Ipsos company dedicated to social media intelligence analysis, and from their numbers it looks like Xbox by far had the most popularity in terms of social media mentions. So Xbox had 1.1 million, Nintendo had 739,000, followed by Ubisoft in third place at 231,000. And then, I mean, the other conferences are very low down, with Devolver 42,000 and Square Enix at 36,000. And I mean, Capcom isn't even on there, and their conference, they didn't really show much. It wasn't a very good conference. And this, I think, is a very good sign for Xbox in terms of how much hype there is right now around Xbox, the Xbox ecosystem, and the games coming out. And just the turn of events, if we look back probably at the Xbox One E3 conferences, there probably wasn't very much hype around it. I would be surprised if the social media mentions were anywhere in the same stratosphere as 1.1 million. And Xbox did a great job hyping up this conference and definitely delivered on what they showed. Now, what else is interesting is the actual games that got the social media mentions, and Among Us was number one. That's 253,000 mentions, followed by Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin at 216,000, and then third place Battlefield 2042 at 172,000. Now, both Among Us and Battlefield 2042 were shown off at the Microsoft and Bethesda showcase. So if you remember at the Microsoft Bethesda showcase, they talked about with Among Us how they are increasing the lobbies to 15 player lobbies, and I think that was a big thing. And then there was that long multiplayer gameplay trailer for Battlefield 2042. I almost said 1942, going way back, but 2042, which looked just amazing, and a game that, after seeing how much fun I think this multiplayer Battlefield futuristic game is going to be with all the crazy stuff going on the Battlefield, I can't wait to play it. And it's for good reason that I think it got a lot of social media mentions. I think it really impressed a lot of people who were on the fence as to whether Battlefield was going to deliver again. And then we go down to the entire list, and there's some interesting stuff here. So in the top 5, 4 of the games were shown off at the Microsoft and Bethesda showcase, with Among Us, Battlefield 2042, Forza Horizon 5, and Halo Infinite. And then you go down a little bit further and you see Starfield within the top 10. And under Starfield, Forza Horizon 5, and Halo Infinite, you have Breath of the Wild 2, and you have Metroid Dread. And I find this a bit surprising, because I would have thought The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 would have been easily the most popular game at all of E3. I mean, not because they really showed off too much about it or gave us a release date or anything like that, but just because of how popular the Legend of Zelda franchise is and how many Nintendo Switches out there. The Nintendo conference had the most peak viewership, so right at one point the most amount of people would have seen it. So overall, I think like it's very interesting that people are more excited for Forza Horizon 5 and Halo Infinite. And maybe it's because they're coming out this year, but I also think it's because of how good these games look and how good Microsoft is doing right now with promoting Xbox and promoting the games coming out on to the Xbox ecosystem and onto Xbox Game Pass. So I mean, at the end of the day, these are just numbers of social media mentions. It has nothing really to do with player counts or people who are going to be buying the games or anything. And some of these social media mentions could have been negative as well. You never know. But what I do think this shows is that Xbox has done a great job of turning the ship around from the Xbox One, where there was absolutely no hype and no excitement around the console. And now with the Xbox Series X and S and Xbox Game Pass, it is at the top of the mind of a lot of people in video games. And like I said before the show started, everybody was going to be talking about the show. Everybody was going to be watching the Xbox and Bethesda showcase, whether they loved Xbox, hated Xbox, or were just neutral. And we can see that by these numbers. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Do you think these numbers mean anything? And do you think this will translate into more Xboxes being sold, more Game Pass subscriptions being sold, and just the overall popularity of Xbox? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you're new here and you like what you see throughout this video, I'd really appreciate you hitting that subscribe button to help this channel grow, help grow this community, so we can have great conversations in the comments below. Thank you again for watching. Thank you for your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.